Hi, in today's video we're going to be looking at the NuTone IK series of entry door intercom systems. The IK series includes the model IK15, which is a 2-station door answering intercom, and the IK25, which is a 3-station door answering intercom. The IK series was introduced in 1975, and it's a little bit of an interesting story. NuTone had a competitor back in the 50s and 60s called Rittenhouse, and Rittenhouse made residential music intercom systems. And sometimes, probably in the late 1960s, they came out with a little 2-station door entry intercom system. I don't know what the model number is, and I've only seen a few of them. In the early 1970s, Rittenhouse was one of those companies that was continually being sold and bought and sold and bought, and each time they were purchased, they seemed to shrink and become smaller and smaller. And at one point in the late 1960s or early 1970s, they discontinued the entry intercom system that they had been making. And I think NuTone saw a market for a product like that. If you had the NuTone IK15 equipment sitting next to the original Rittenhouse equipment, you would notice that they were virtually identical. They're the same size, the layout is very similar, the controls are a little different, but the IK15, I think, was designed to become a direct replacement for the older Rittenhouse system. It actually even worked on the same wiring layout as the Rittenhouse, so I think NuTone was making a grab for a market that already existed. It seemed to be a popular market because NuTone made the IK series for almost 30 years. So in today's video, we're going to focus primarily on the IK15 because it shares a lot of common design aspects with the IK25, and then at the end of the video we'll just look at the IK25 and I'll show you what some of the differences are. So let's go ahead and move the IK25 out of the way and take a look at the IK15. With this example of the NuTone IK15, you'll notice that on the box it says Village Chime Talk by NuTone. And up here, it shows the model as a VIK15. Village was a retail name that NuTone used in the 70s and 80s for their products that were sold through hardware store chains. In the area that we are located in, you would find them at the Orchard Supply Hardware. We used to have a hardware chain called Yardbirds. You would find them there. You probably would find them in Ace Hardwares also. So it was a retail package as opposed to a builder or a distributor package. And there were a lot of NuTone products that used the name Village, including standard doorbells and some bathroom fans and heaters and other things like that. It's the identical product as our standard IK15. It's just in a retail package. This particular box contains a complete set that's unopened, and judging by the picture and the information I could find out about it, this is probably a mid-80s set. I'm guessing it was probably manufactured sometime between 82 and 84, and as we take it apart and look at it today, we should be able to date code it based on the dates of the components. So what do you have in an IK15? Well, you have the box. Of course, you have the postman ringing the door and the lady of the house answering the door to find out who it is before she goes and unlocks it. And if you had bought one of these new, oh, and by the way, there's a retail price on the side here that says $49.95, and then here it must have been marked down because it's $39.95. And here it looks like it was marked down again and somebody scribbled it out. So who knows, they were probably trying to get rid of them and kept putting it, lowering the price. If you open it up, what you find inside is the installation instruction booklet that came with it. And then you have the 3 parts of the kit. And this is still sealed in the shrink wrap that it was put in when it was manufactured. So this is truly a brand new unit. You also notice that on the speaker, on the door speaker, it says Village by NuTone, as it does on the inside station. So these truly were retail packaging. And what you have here is the single inside unit, the front door station, and a low voltage transformer that powers the system. And this is the way these systems were packaged. They were truly a little kit. And they were most commonly used, at least in this area, by builders and developers in homes, in subdivisions. Many times it would be put in place of a standard doorbell, so it was a simple and inexpensive upgrade to do. There was one city near us that in the 80s and 90s, they had, as part of the building code, said that if you didn't want to put a peephole in your front door, you could put in an entry intercom system in place of the peephole, and that would satisfy the code. And we actually have subdivisions out here where there are hundreds and hundreds of houses that all have IK15s or IK25s. So this was primarily, I think, targeted towards builders and developers, although it was available to put in a single residential home also. Part of the clever design of the IK15 in particular was that it was not a wire dependent system. It would work on virtually any type of low voltage wiring that you could put into a house, and it was also designed where it could be easily retrofitted in place of a standard 2-note mechanical doorbell, which almost every single home has. Even to the point that on the control on the inside unit, which is push to talk and release to hear the reply, the kit includes, and it's probably under this station, it included a string that you would attach to the control in case your doorbell was high up on the wall. And then you could pull the string down and ask who's there and then hear the response. On the front door station, you have a door chime button, and you have a little name plaque next to it where you could put your name in there, and that way people would know that they were at the right house. The IK15 includes a built-in electronic chime, so when someone comes to the front door, pushes the button, it creates the chime tones on the inside unit, and it activates the system, and then you can push down to ask who's there, release to hear the reply, and once you're done talking to the front door, and you walk away from the inside station, it will time out and go back to standby. There are both timeout and volume adjustments on the inside unit, and these are a very simple system to operate and install. If we take a quick look at the installation instructions, you'll see that there were a variety of different ways it could be installed. So if you look on the installation instructions, again it says Village by NuTone model VIK15, but these are identical to an IK15. It talks about choosing a location for it, whether it's replacing it. See, they talk a lot about replacing an existing 2-note chime because they were going after the upgrade your doorbell market. So it talks about choosing that for new installations. It talks about wiring and wiring for new installations. It gives you some different wiring layouts. It talks about replacing the transformer for your old doorbell with the transformer that is included in the kit. And even to the point where there's this supplement sheet that's called Identifying Chime Wiring Instructions for Use in Replacing an Existing 2-Note Chime with the Village Model VIK15 Door Answering Intercom. And they show you all different types of wiring layouts that would be used for all different types of standard doorbell installations. Here's one for front and rear door buttons, common wire connected at the chime location. Here's front and rear door, common wire connected at the transformer location. On the back, we have front door only, common wire at the chime location, front door only, common wire at the transformer location. So they're trying to cover all the different possibilities. Oh, as a point of interest, this sheet is dated October 1983, so that gives you some idea when this is from. And then on the inside of the installation booklet, you've got another review of placement instructions and different wiring layouts. And then you've got mounting the speakers, how to install the door speaker, how to install the master station. Here they show how to install the pull cord on the talk listen button. And then on the back of the sheet, how to make the timeout and volume adjustments on the inside unit. So they were being very comprehensive with the instructions, so it was easy for a do-it-yourselfer to put this in. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and open up the VIK15 package. It'll be the first time it's been opened up since it was made, and do a brief overview of what's inside. Alright, is everybody ready? We're going to do an unboxing of a VIK15 from the early 1980s. First time it's been opened since it was new. We're going to open it in the same fashion that an installer would do if he was at your house putting this in, which we're simply going to take our screwdriver and we're going to tear through the plastic, because once it's opened up, it doesn't matter that it's never been opened anymore. So go ahead and take the plastic off. And one by one, let's take things out and take a look at them. First, we'll take out the transformer. And it's really stuck in there too. Alright, so here we have a transformer. This is a little NuTone 101N. Later it would become a 101T. And it's a 16 volt 10 VA or 10 watt transformer. This is the tiniest transformer that NuTone made, and it's only really suitable to run something like the IK15 or perhaps a really inexpensive 2-note mechanical doorbell. It's a very small transformer. Of course, it's got a lot of corrosion on the metal from being in the package for the last 30 some years. It probably doesn't affect how it works, but I wouldn't install it. Then we'll take out the inside station, and as I suspected, there's a mounting hardware bag behind the door speaker because that's the way it normally came. And again, oops, don't want to drop it. Okay, so what we have here is, it's a simple little molded plastic case with a doorbell button and the name plaque. And on the back, it's a little different than other NuTone door stations. This is by itself, this is a model IS68, and these were available separately either for replacement of ones that had failed, or you could also have 2 entry door stations on an IK15 if you needed to add the second one. And what you have here is a small speaker cone, the back of the doorbell button or the push button, and then you have 2 capacitors. And the capacitors make a connection between one side of the button and one terminal on the door speaker, the cone itself. And the thing that's unique about IS68s and IK15s and IK25s is that the door station, which is communication and a chime button, all operates on just 2 wires. All other NuTone intercom systems that have communication and a doorbell circuit would require 4 wires. And the 2 wires were necessary because if you were replacing an existing mechanical door chime on your house, you would only have 2 wires behind the button on your front porch. So NuTone had to come up with a design that would work on the existing 2 wires. And the way they did that was by adding these 2 capacitors in here, which provide isolation between the chime circuit and the communication, but allowing each of these to work in on the same 2 wires. The biggest problem with the IS68 door speakers are just like any other door speaker. It's outside on your house and it's in the weather and the sun and the wind and the rain, and over time the paper in the speaker cone weathers away and the speaker cone will fail. The push button is also out in the weather and the contacts inside of it become corroded and don't operate well, and before you know it, your station doesn't work anymore. If we take off the little quality pass sticker on here, we might be able to see that this is a 16 ohm 1 watt speaker cone. The problem with these speaker cones, and I have looked and looked and looked, I cannot find any manufacturer that makes a speaker cone like this. It's easy enough to find 16 ohm speaker cones, but not in this size, or you can find speaker cones in this size, but with the wrong rating. So that creates a real problem. But I will show you, not in this video, but in another video, which I'll make shortly, how you can convert a standard NuTone door speaker, a modern one, into an IS68, which you can use with your IK15 and IK25 station. The other thing to take note of is the push buttons on an IS68, even though they are standard NuTone doorbell push buttons from the day, they do not have lights in them. They are not lighted doorbell buttons. And you cannot have a lighted doorbell button on an IK15 or IK25 if it's installed with just the standard 2 wires. There was an option where you could have a lit button if you had 4 wires, but I don't think in 30 years I've ever seen that. So if you do go to replace the button, you have to buy an unlighted button, or if you buy a button with a light in it, you have to take the bulb out. So that's just a point of interest. So that's your basic IS68. We'll do the hardware pack at the end. So let's take out the IK25. Alright, so here's the back of the IK25. Well, I guess we should look at the front first. So what you have here is very simple. You have one control. It says push to talk, and it's spring-loaded, and when you release it, it pops back to the off position. One of the problems with IK15s, especially as they get older, is the switch that the button moves on the back of it does what this one does. It hangs up or it sticks. This one, since it's new, probably could be cleaned and it would operate better, but it's not uncommon for them to stick down, and that's just something that either a little cleaning will do, or if the switch is very worn, you've got a problem. On the back of the unit, you can see again, like the door speaker, it's very simple. You have a speaker cone here, and you have a single circuit board, and that's the entire thing. Coming off the single circuit board are a bunch of different colored wires, and they're kind of taped in there. There we go. And they're kind of bundled together so you would know which ones you would typically use. You'll notice some of them, the ends, the insulation is stripped back, and some of them are not. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So if we consult our installation instructions, first diagram, figure 1, you'll see that the transformer, the wires connect to the red wires, and the door speaker connect to the green wires. And if you look here, you'll see that here are our red wires and they're stripped back, and here are our green wires and they're stripped back. So it's all ready to go. The only thing they don't give you, I don't think, are little wire nuts. Let's look in the package and see. Nope, no wire nuts, but we do get a cord. So that's good. So this is all there is to it. The volume and timeout adjustments, which you'll see better when I take the board out, the timeout adjustment is here, and the volume adjustment is here. And since the volume adjustment is something that you may need to adjust more frequently than the timeout, you have access to it through a hole in the bottom of the faceplate, and you can simply rotate it to make the volume louder or softer. So that's really all there is to this. Oh look, let's look at this real quick. So right here on the circuit board, these are all the little solder connections for all the components on the other side. Here we have what would be referred to as a bodge. A bodge is a modification that was made when it was manufactured, and it looks like there's a little piece of wire that's soldered between here and here. So it's gone across. This would not be part of the standard production that it was planned to be made this way. This was a change they made during the production, probably to solve a problem that it had that they didn't anticipate when they designed it. So it's just interesting. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and take this board off and turn it over. That way we can find out when it was really made and show you what's on the other side. So now we're looking at the component side of the circuit board, and you can see there's not really very much on here. Here's the plunger switch that the control on the front of the unit operates. You've got some power supply stuff going on over here. You've got your volume adjustment and your timeout adjustment pots here, and then you've got a couple integrated circuits. There's an op amp, there's a little miniature audio amplifier. One of the most interesting chips is this ULN2283. This is an unusual, odd little 70s chime sound producing chip. It was designed specifically, as I understand it, to make chime tones in things like doorbells. So NuTone utilized, I guess, the cutting edge design of the 70s when they produced this or designed this. And since the IK15 and the IK25 were in production for well over 30 years, there's a lot of different circuit boards that were used in a 30-year period. This one is actually, if you look at the dates on the components, this was made towards the end of 1983. So I was pretty much dead on with the date of manufacturer. You know, at that point, it was already close to 10 years old. And in the coming 20 years, this board would change many, many times as they improved it. Components would go obsolete and they would have to redesign it for newer components, and on and on and on. So there's a lot of variations and a lot of versions of the boards in IK15s and IK25s. One of the problems with these in repairing them is that there's virtually no documentation as to what all of those changes are, and the schematics for them were never really published for service. We only have 1 or 2 examples of schematics, and it seems as if they never actually match the unit that we get in for repair. So these are pretty much a work it out as you go kind of item. You do basic diagnostics on it, figure out what's wrong, see if you can find the parts that you need to repair it, and so forth. IK15s and IK25s, the most common problems after door speakers are the same problems that all intercom systems have. They have age-related power supply issues. The capacitors in the IK25 or the IK15 fail due to age. And even if they're brand new, like this one is, you saw me open the package so you know it's brand new. This capacitor right here is 33 years old. If you were to install this and hook it up, while it may work initially, it's certainly not going to last 15 or 20 years. You might get less than a year out of it before they begin to fail. And common failures that you see in how it operates are sometimes a constant amount of static or crackling noise that comes through the speaker even when it's supposed to be turned off. Poor quality communication where it's low volume or it's distorted. When the chime rings, it sounds distorted, or it won't communicate in both directions. Those are all sometimes age-related power supply issues or other failures in other components. When the other solid-state components fail, it's often because the age-related, like the power supply components, they have been failing for such a long period of time that it damages how the other solid-state components operate, and that's why those have a problem. So they're always very challenging and interesting to work on. When we were looking at the wiring, there were wires that have not been stripped back. You have the yellow pair and you have an orange pair. So there was an optional feature on the IK15 and the IK25, and that was to be able to operate an optional electric door release. And if we turn it over, we'll take this out. This right here is a little removable panel, and if we pop this out from the back, you'll see underneath it, it still says off and talk, just like it did here, but now it says door release and there's a hole. So this is a hole that's sized for a standard NuTone doorbell push button, just like this one, and you would pop this in here, and 2 of the wires, and I believe it's the orange wires, go to the back of the button, and then the yellow wires go to connect to wires that run to the door with the electric door release. And when someone comes to your door, they ring your chime, you talk back and forth, and then you can push the button and buzz them in. It's not something that was done very often in homes because most people don't have electric door releases on their homes, but it was done a lot. I've seen it in a lot of businesses like doctors' offices, dentist offices, veterinarian clinics, places like that. So it was a convenient thing so you didn't have to go up and unlock the door all the time. So that's the fundamentals of an IK15. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at the IK25 and see what some of the differences are between it and the IK15. So here we have our IK25 set, and you can see it's fundamentally the same concept. It's a pre-packaged kit. Now this one is not, this is new, although it didn't come with the shrink wrap on it, and I'm not even sure how long I've had it. It's been in the shop for a long time. It's just one of those spare things that we have. And you can see it's just like the IK15, only larger. You have an entry door station here. It includes the low voltage transformer, same transformer as the IK15, so no difference there. And then you have two inside units. The inside units, the controls are slightly different. You have two buttons instead of a spring-loaded slide switch, and you have door talk, which allows you to talk to the entry door, and then you have inside talk, which allows you to talk between the two stations. So it was a little more sophisticated in its design, even though it's still very simple. And mostly you see these in two-story houses where you have the main unit downstairs where it's convenient to use to answer the front door, and then you have another one upstairs, usually like in the main hallway, so you have communication between the floors. So the way these work are, one of the inside units, this one, would be the secondary unit, and it looks like someone's had kind of a go at this a little bit because this has obviously been hooked up once. And then you have the other main inside unit. I'm going to try not to break the styrofoam here. And here's the main inside unit, and you can see that it's a very similar design to the IK15. You have a speaker cone, you have a single circuit board, and a whole bunch of wires. There are more wires than in an IK15 because you not only have the power wires from the transformer and the wires that connect it to the door speaker, but you also have wires that connect the main inside unit, which is the one with the electronics, to the remote inside unit, which would be upstairs or somewhere else in the house. So it takes 5 individual wires to run between these two stations to make it work properly. All you have on the secondary inside unit is a speaker cone, a couple of push buttons, and wires that are pre-connected to connect the two units together. So it's a very simple design. IK25s have the same problems as IK15s. You have failed door speakers, you have aging electronics. Sometimes the push buttons will have problems, but these are very well made push buttons. These are the same small rectangular push buttons that NuTone used in its apartment house entry intercom directory panels. So they're very long lasting and sealed well, so they don't tend to get staticky when you operate them. Sometimes the little caps on the buttons will crack, and you can actually, sometimes you can pop them off. That one doesn't want to come off. Sometimes they're pushed onto a little post in the middle of the switch, and so there's a recess in the button cap on the back side where it's pushed down onto the post. And sometimes the plastic will crack right across here where the hole on the back side is. If that happens on yours and it falls out, you can simply take them, use a little super glue, glue the two halves back together, push it back on the post, and it'll last. We do lots of them. These buttons are not made anymore. NuTone doesn't have them, and we can't find a direct replacement for them. And in a home intercom system, it's not a huge deal, but if you've got a 100-unit apartment building with 100 buttons, they need to all work. So you do what you have to, and gluing them together seems to work pretty well. So let's talk about repairing IK15s and IK25s all together and the ins and outs of that. The biggest problem or the biggest challenging with repairing something like an IK15 or an IK25, beyond the simple fact that door stations can be a problem, but we have a modern solution, so that's not terrible. But the problem with repairing the main inside units has to come down to cost. If you think about it, I can say that in say 1995, if you were a developer or a builder and you were putting IK25 systems in several hundred homes in a subdivision, you probably would have paid maybe $49 for each kit. Pretty reasonable. If you went and bought this at a dealer, if you came into my store in 1995 to buy this, you probably would pay $95 for it. An IK15, much less. Builder might pay $29 for it. You might pay $59 in my shop for it. So they were very inexpensive. The problem with repairing electronics is the cost to repair a unit doesn't have any real relationship to what it cost when it was new. And in some respects, a simpler design like the IK15 or the IK25, because they use many truly obsolete components which are hard to find nowadays, the time and effort it takes to repair one of these can easily be 2 or 3 times what it cost when it was new. The other problem with these, when these were still available from NuTone as a new product, let's say we had a service call and Mrs. Jones calls and she lives out in Bentoncourt Ranch where there are 200 IK25 systems and she's having a problem. Her door speaker doesn't work anymore. She has static on the inside station and she's generally unhappy with the whole thing. We wouldn't go out there and say, well, Mrs. Jones, we can remove your system and take it back to the shop and repair it for you and then make another trip back out and reinstall it. We would simply take an IK25 with us because they were inexpensive items and we would replace all of her equipment with brand new equipment. She would pay us and we'd go on our way. She would have a new IK25 in her home that worked perfectly. We would take the old ones and throw them away because nobody wanted them because they didn't work. Oh, and also, if it was much later than when her house was built, she could have a nice white colored one instead of ivory, because later on they changed the colors to white. So there isn't really a lot of repair history on something like IK25s and IK15s because they were so inexpensive for the product compared to the labor of a service call and the little bit of time it took to put one in. You know, if you were replacing an existing system, I could put in an IK15 system in place of an original one. I could probably do the whole thing in 15 minutes. And an IK25, maybe 5 minutes longer, but really very simple to do. So nobody ever really fixed these. You simply would replace it with a brand new one, throw the old one away, and everybody went on. Nowadays, since there is no direct replacement for these from NuTone any longer, we're faced with people that have these that they don't work and they need to have them repaired. And they're often shocked at what it truly costs to do this. Bench time and shop time is the same, whether it's a IK15 from 1989 or whether it's a 4006 from 1989. The time and the labor cost to repair them on an hourly basis is the same. So they're expensive items to fix, but if they're built into your home and you don't have the opportunity to rewire for something new and modern, sometimes that's your only choice. So they are usually repairable. In some respects, if you're handy and you have a little bit of experience with repairing electronics, it's not a bad do-it-yourself project if you're willing to really dig into it and try. That's kind of the ins and outs of IK15s and IK25s. I will do a follow-up video where I'm going to show you in detail how a standard modern NuTone entry door station can be modified to take the place of an IS68. I know that people find these when they need them. Oftentimes you can find these, for instance, on eBay, and I see people, this morning I checked, there's people that are selling these. They are brand new. They want as much as $145 for one of these. And I can tell you that in 2005, retail price on this was about $42. So they're taking advantage of the fact that they're hard to come by and they're not made any longer. And I'll show you how to make a modern, better quality, better looking replacement for about $70. So that's all about IK15s and IK25s for today. That's all for today. I hope you found this interesting and helpful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up on YouTube. If you like our YouTube channel and you find our videos helpful, please subscribe to our channel. That's all for today. See you on the next video.